Just moments ago, shocking news emerged from Leno himself, and fans everywhere are stunned. The beloved comedian, late-night host, and automotive icon has always been known for his humor, resilience, and upbeat spirit. But what he just revealed is something no one saw coming. And it's far more serious than anyone expected. At 74, Leno has faced more challenges in the past few years than many people face in a lifetime. From his terrifying garage fire that left him with severe burns, to a motorcycle accident that could have ended his life. But now, Jay has stepped forward to reveal heartbreaking new details that are leaving millions worried. He's always been open with his fans, but today's announcement carries a different weight: urgent, emotional, and deeply personal. Those closest to him say this may be his most difficult moment yet. Doctors, friends, and fellow stars have already begun responding, and the reactions are filled with shock, concern, and disbelief. What Jay Leno is going through right now has raised questions his fans never imagined. They'd be asking about his future, his health, and even his ability to continue doing what he loves most. Jay has inspired generations through laughter, storytelling, and resilience. But the news he just delivered reveals a struggle that comedy can't hide. From inside sources to first-hand accounts, the truth behind Jay's latest update is both frightening and heartbreaking. And the world is now watching closely, hoping for the best. This is the full story of what just happened to Jay Leno, and why it has everyone talking. Jay Leno has always been a symbol of strength and optimism throughout his decades-long career. From hosting The Tonight Show to building one of the most impressive car collections in the world, he rarely showed signs of slowing down. Even during moments of personal challenge, Jay would often rely on humor and resilience to push forward. But the announcement he made just moments ago was different. This time, his words carried a weight that fans had never heard from him before. It began with a simple message. Jay Leno was going public about something deeply serious, something he could no longer keep private. As he stepped forward to speak, his usual upbeat energy was replaced with a somber, reflective tone. For a man who built his life on laughter, the stillness in his voice said more than any joke ever could. Fans watching from across the world immediately sensed that this was not another lighthearted story. This was something life-changing. Jay began by acknowledging the difficult years he has recently endured. The brutal garage fire that left him with second- and third-degree burns on his face and upper body was already a terrifying ordeal. The motorcycle crash that followed just months later added another layer of trauma: broken ribs, a shattered collarbone, and severe bruising. Each incident would have shaken anyone else to their core. But Jay continued to smile through the pain, insisting he was fine every time cameras found him. But now, Jay is admitting the truth. He hasn't been fine, not for a long time. For the first time, he revealed that the physical and emotional toll of these accidents has been far heavier than he ever let on. Behind the laughter, there were nights of fear, pain, and uncertainty. There were moments when he questioned whether he'd ever fully recover, moments when even the simple joys of life felt distant. As he spoke, Jay described how the aftermath of his injuries affected every part of his life: constant medical appointments, physical therapy sessions, and the weight of recovery began to consume his days. The man who once thrived in front of live audiences now found himself facing long stretches of silence, confined to rooms filled with the cold light of medical equipment. More than once, he admitted, he wondered if he would ever return to the life he once knew. Then came the most heartbreaking part of his announcement. Jay revealed that his doctors recently delivered devastating news about the long-term effects of his injuries, news that could change his future forever. While he didn't share every detail, he made it clear that this new diagnosis has forced him to reevaluate everything, from his work to his daily routines, and even his beloved passion for cars. For a man who has spent nearly every free moment under the hood of an engine, the thought of losing that part of his life is nearly unimaginable. Friends close to Jay say that what he's dealing with is serious, far more serious than he initially let on. Some have expressed fear that this could impact his mobility, while others worry it may affect him mentally and emotionally in ways fans have never seen before. Jay himself acknowledged that this may be his greatest challenge yet. even greater than the accidents that nearly took his life. Still, despite the heaviness of his words, there was one thing the world recognized. Jay Leno is not someone who gives up easily. Even in the darkest moments, he maintained the resolve and determination that have defined his entire career. He emphasized that while the news is frightening, he is committed to fighting through it. Just as he has overcome every other obstacle. Ends on a note of uncertainty, but also strength. Jay Leno has revealed the truth. He is facing something horrifying, something life-altering, and something that demands the world's attention. But he has also made it clear that this is not the end of his story. It is simply the beginning of a new chapter, one where courage matters more than ever. While Jay Leno has always been known for his transparency and openness, there has always been a certain line he never crossed, a line between what the public saw and what he truly endured behind closed doors. For decades, his role as a comedian and entertainer meant keeping people laughing, even when the world around him wasn't always kind. But after the accidents that shook his life, Jay found himself fighting battles no camera ever caught and no audience ever heard about. In this chapter, we look deeper into the private struggle Jay worked so hard to hide. After the garage fire nearly took his life, Jay insisted he was okay. The images of him being wheeled into the Grossman Burn Center told a different story. But even then, he smiled at reporters and played down the seriousness of his injuries. What the world didn't see were the months of excruciating treatments that followed. Burn patients often endure relentless pain, and Jay was no exception. The procedures, debridement, skin grafts, and hyperbaric treatments were necessary but agonizing. Doctors close to the case later revealed that Jay showed signs of long-term nerve trauma. Some areas of his face and upper body still hold lingering numbness, while others remain extremely sensitive. For a man who interacts with the world physically, shaking hands, hugging fans, working on engines, these complications challenged his everyday life. But Jay didn't share this publicly. Then came the motorcycle accident, a blow to both his body and spirit. Multiple ribs cracked, bones broken, his collarbone shattered, all injuries that can take months to heal. He struggled to lift basic objects, struggled to sleep, and struggled to move without a sharp jolt of pain reminding him of what he had endured. These limitations were devastating, especially for someone whose life revolved around movement, physical work, and adventure. Even more concerning was the emotional toll. Friends noticed changes in Jay, subtle at first, then increasingly noticeable. His usual energy became more subdued. He became quieter, more reflective, and often seemed lost in thought. He laughed, yes, but the spark behind the laughter had dimmed. For the first time in decades, Jay Leno was forced to confront the reality of aging, fragility, and fear. His wife, Mavis, became his anchor through the darkest moments. She reportedly encouraged him to slow down, to take care of himself, and to process the emotional trauma, not just the physical damage. But slowing down was never easy for Jay. He had built his life on momentum, constant projects, constant work, constant engagement with the world. Pausing meant confronting feelings he had avoided for years. Privately, Jay struggled with the possibility that he might lose his independence. The thought of needing long-term medical care or of stepping away from driving terrified him. Cars weren't just a hobby, they were a part of his identity. His garage was his sanctuary. To lose that would mean losing a piece of himself. But the most haunting part of this chapter came when Jay admitted something deeply personal. After his latest diagnosis, he realized he may no longer be able to do certain things he loves. His doctors warned him about the risks of continuing high-intensity work and advised him to reevaluate his lifestyle. Jay had always pushed through pain, but this time, pushing could come with consequences too serious to ignore still. Jay tried to carry the burden quietly, refusing to alarm fans or create worry. He kept filming episodes of Jay Leno's Garage, kept performing stand-up comedy, and even continued attending events. But every smile came with effort, and every move demanded more strength than anyone realized. The truth that Jay finally revealed is heartbreaking because it shows how deeply he struggled. Before saying a single word publicly, for months, even years, he carried this weight alone. protecting his fans from worry while silently battling pain, fear, and emotional exhaustion. And we see the real Jay Leno, not the entertainer, not the comedian, but the man behind the curtain. A man who pushed through unimaginable hardship while trying to shield the world from his suffering. The moment Jay Leno revealed his latest diagnosis, everything suddenly became clear: the silence, the hesitation, the change in his energy. For months, fans sensed that his doctors warned him that pushing himself too hard could result in permanent damage, or even lead to injuries he might never recover from. For a man who thrived on physical work, lifting engines, restoring cars, welding metal, this news was devastating. Then came the emotional impact of the diagnosis, something Jay didn't discuss lightly. He admitted that for the first time in his life, he felt genuinely afraid of what the future might hold. Not afraid of death. Jay has always been pragmatic about life, but afraid of losing his independence, his mobility, and the passion that defined him. His identity wasn't built on fame or money. It was built on movement, craftsmanship, and the ability to create. And suddenly, all of that was at risk. Even more heartbreaking was the warning from experts. If he continued working the way he always had, the consequences could be irreversible. His doctors strongly advised him to reduce physical labor, limit the amount of time he spent in his garage, and prioritize long-term wellness over short-term passion. For Jay, this felt like being told to step away from the very thing that kept him alive. Close friends say that after receiving the diagnosis, Jay spent days in silence, something completely unlike him. He sat in his garage, staring at the cars that had once brought him nothing but joy, now unsure if he would ever be able to work on them with the same enthusiasm or physical capability. The tools that once felt like extensions of his hands suddenly felt heavy, almost foreign. Even attending public events became challenging. Standing for long periods was painful. Flashing lights aggravated his nerves. Shaking hands with fans, which he always loved doing, became risky with the sensitivity of his injuries. For a performer whose entire livelihood depended on interacting with people, these limitations felt suffocating. But perhaps the hardest part of all was accepting that things would never be the same. Jay confessed that he tried to hide the worsening symptoms for as long as he could. He didn't want pity. He didn't want headlines exaggerating the story. And he certainly didn't want fans worrying about him. So he pushed through the pain, sometimes smiling through discomfort that would leave him exhausted afterward. He insisted he was okay, even when he wasn't. Finally, the turning point came. Jay realized that pretending was doing more harm than good, physically and emotionally. He needed to be honest, both with the public and with himself. And so, with visible difficulty, he stepped forward and revealed what he had been carrying in silence. His diagnosis forced him to confront the reality of his own limits, a truth he had avoided for far too long. It forced him to acknowledge that he might not be able to continue the life he once lived. It forced him to imagine a future where he would need to rely on others, a future he had never prepared for. Reveals the heartbreaking transition Jay Leno is facing, from a man driven by passion and energy to a man learning to accept fragility, fear, and vulnerability. It is a chapter marked by pain, but also by courage, the courage to face a truth that would break most people. As Jay Leno finishes sharing the truth about what he's been facing, one thing becomes painfully clear: his life will never return to the rhythm it once had. At 74, after decades spent building an extraordinary career, inspiring millions, and living life at full speed, Jay has now reached a moment when he must slow down, not by choice, but by necessity. And yet, even in the middle of heartbreaking challenges, his spirit shows no signs of breaking. In this chapter, we explore what Jay's future now looks like, and how he is learning to rebuild a life forever changed. For most of his life, Jay lived like a machine that never powered off. Every day began early. Every project ran late into the night. Every joke, show, and appearance felt like fuel to keep him going. But his diagnosis forced him to confront the reality that the human body, even one as strong and determined as his, eventually demands care, attention, and limits. Doctors advised Jay to make difficult lifestyle adjustments, including reducing strenuous activity and stepping away from high-risk environments like his garage. This was not just advice. It was a warning. Continuing at his old pace could lead to complications far beyond what he already faced for Jay. Accepting these new boundaries was emotionally overwhelming. He loved working with his hands more than anything. Turning wrenches, fixing engines, restoring classic cars, these were not hobbies. They were an essential part of who he was. They grounded him, gave him purpose, and brought him comfort when life felt heavy. Stepping back from that world felt like letting go of a piece of himself. And yet, in the middle of heartbreaking change, Jay began discovering new ways to adapt. His team installed safer, more accessible tools in his workshop. He started working on lighter projects that didn't strain his body. Instead of lifting engines, he focused on designing, supervising, and teaching younger mechanics who admired him. Jay found joy not just in doing the work, but in passing on the knowledge he built over a lifetime. He also found strength in something he rarely slowed down long enough to enjoy: time with loved ones. His wife, Mavis, became his steady source of calm. Their conversations grew deeper. Their days grew slower. Their bond grew stronger than ever. For the first time, Jay allowed himself to rest without guilt, to sit still without feeling he was falling behind. Professionally, Jay is also reassessing his future. While he still appears publicly and continues certain projects, he now recognizes the importance of pacing himself. He has scaled back certain commitments, chosen fewer travel-heavy shows, and shifted focus to work that keeps him safe and allows him freedom to protect his health. Fans have noticed that he appears less frequently, but when he does, the gratitude in his smile says everything. This new chapter of Jay's life is not defined by what he has lost, but by what he is learning to preserve. He realizes now that legacy isn't built solely on work or achievements. It's built on relationships, impact, and courage. Jay's willingness to come forward with the truth has sparked compassion from fans worldwide. Messages of support, letters, and encouragement have poured in. People admire not just the entertainer he has been, but the human being he is: brave, humble, and honest. Perhaps the most inspiring part of Jay's journey is the message he now shares. He urges others to listen to their bodies, to take care of themselves, and to never feel weak for needing help. "You only get one body," he said in a recent message to fans. "Take care of it, even when you think you're tough enough to push through everything, because eventually it catches up." Shows a Jay Leno who is older, wiser, and more vulnerable than the world has ever seen. But it also shows a man who refuses to let hardship define him. He is still fighting, still adapting, still smiling, even through the pain. Though his future may look different now, Jay Leno continues to face it with the same determination that made him a legend. His journey is no longer about pushing forward at full speed, but about learning to walk at a new pace, one filled with gratitude, resilience, and hope. And in that way, Jay remains exactly who he has always been: an inspiration.